Hello and welcome to this Broad Street Hockey YouTube stream here. I am Ryan Gilbert. Joining me is Jacob Russell. Talk about some Flyers trade rumors, Laughton, Ristolainen, Kuzmenko, anything else you guys may have in the chat. If you're watching live, please give us some questions there. But first of all, Jacob, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It kind of feels like this is all in a bit of a holding pattern here now for the last week or so. But yeah, I've been doing well.
Yeah. Your mic sounds a little bit low. I'm not sure if you can raise it up a bit. I'm not sure if we'll get some comments about that. I think Thomas is in the chat, so he'll let us know. A little better now, I think. But yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
we'll troubleshoot. But yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah. Me, you, and Thomas talked, I think, 2 weeks ago now on a Thursday about trade rumors, and it's kind of the same, kind of different. There's been just little rumblings or whispers or whatever you want to call them, insider talk here and there. But yeah, Scott Laughton remains the guy that seems most likely to go. Ristolainen, maybe not quite yet because he has one more year on his contract than Laughton, 2 more years after this season. And Kuzmenko, potential flip, depending how he's fitting in, depending what they get. And, we didn't necessarily see Frost or Farabee coming, so there could be some things coming out of the woodwork there. Before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the Broad Street Hockey YouTube. We now have over 500 subscribers. You can do super chats, super stickers. So for this stream, if you leave a super chat, we'll stop what we're doing and read it as long as it's appropriate, as long as it's safe for work and child appropriate. We will do that to get started here. Make sure you also read the website, broadstreethockey.com. Jacob had a good article on which prospects we could see for the Flyers this year, especially if these guys get moved. We'll need some fill-ins there. And the Discord as well. We got some questions there earlier. So let's just get started here. So Scott Laughton, what are we thinking here? The latest is the Leafs appear to be the top interested. Sarah Valley said something today that he's in on them. Darren Dreger said on Tuesday night's Insider Trading that he thinks he's among the best fits for the Leafs, along with Braden Shen. Jake, where do you stand here on Scott Laughton? Do you think the Flyers are going to trade him? Do you think they should trade him? What do you think?
Well, hopefully I sound a little bit better now.
Yeah, sound good.
Yeah, a bit better. Anyways, Laughton, this is where I'm kind of torn with Laughton, right? Because it's been a lot of discussion over a guy that maybe necessarily we don't have the highest opinion of as Flyers fans. As an on-ice product, obviously. Everyone loves Scott Laughton. Everybody loves what he does in the community as a teammate, as a Flyer, right? He does embody that sort of spirit. So trading him for a second-round pick, which is it seems like, we were talking in the pre-show a little bit before about the Leafs turning down a report from David Pagnotta from the fourth period that said the Leafs turned down the Flyers' offer of Laughton for Minton pretty much straight up, or a framework of that deal. Some contracts could go one way or the other. The Leafs, I'm pretty sure, would like to clear up some cap space where they can, or clear up some more roster spots where they can. But that was turned down, right? So that's basically a first-round equivalent asset. Minton is, for all intents and purposes, basically a first-rounder. He was drafted in the first round, and he will, act as such, right? So what I wanted to put to you, Ryan, as well, what do you think, if Scott Laughton is going to get traded for a second-round pick, if he's going to get traded for a second and a third, if he's going to get traded for 2/3, maybe one now, one in the future, is it even worth really getting rid of a guy who's so integral to the team and to the culture?
It's probably not. We know the price is that first round pick. That's been widely reported for a while, for years now. That's just been what it is. And I don't think they're going to trade him unless they get that first round pick, or maybe 2 seconds or a second and a prospect, just because of what he does mean to the room. And the first point you brought up of we don't think too highly of him, that's kind of maybe last year, Scott Laughton, when he looked like kind of a shell of himself a little bit. Now he has the second highest points per 60 at 5-on-5 on the team, behind only Bobby Brink at 1.95. He's got 11 goals now. I know 4 of those were in one game, but he's actually a third line player. He's not a stretch of a third line player for that. So I think that combined with, the market out there, the teams being interested, I think you have to get a first round pick. And yeah, I saw that Minton report. I think he said like it was like a month ago they offered it. And I don't know if Minton's been back up to the NHL since then. It seems kind of surprising that the Leafs wouldn't be like, all right, let's see what Minton can do. And if he can't be that third line guy, maybe we move him for a third line guy. So I do think the Leafs are still the front runner. And also a little bit like inside baseball here. Like I think some of the leaks to people being like, oh, the Devils are interested now, the Sens, there's 7 teams now. I think it's ultimately like Briere went to Laughton. They're like, all right, we'll try to get you to Toronto. We'll see what we can do. Because that seems like the best destination for him. And they have a first round pick next year and Minton, who the Flyers could go after. So that's where I'm at it. I my emotions have kind of I've been separating them because yeah, it's going to suck to lose them, but this team is vibing well right now after losing Farabee and Frost, 2 young guys, and it seems like they'll be able to carry it on.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I'm hesitant about is like further breaking up the room a little bit for something, or like having the chance of that happening for really not that much of a return. I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Leafs get more desperate. They started out hot off the break. They've won 3 in a row. And I think maybe there might be a bit of hope that... Oh, I see a little quiet. Thank you, Thomas.
Jacob, a little quiet.
I don't know why it's quiet today. It should be loud.
Is your microphone on your mic or is it on your laptop? I know that's it's an error that some Brunswick hockey hosts have had.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll get back to it in a minute. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, but yeah, for the Leafs, like they either have to pony up to get Braden Shen, who I saw would take like 2 first round picks or the equivalent. Maybe they get Ryan O'Reilly back. I don't know if the Preds are going to move him. He feels like a Lightning to me. It feels like Lightning's going to swoop in and get Ryan O'Reilly. But like Brock Nelson's probably staying on Long Island, so Scott Laughton could slot in perfectly as their third line center. And they have Minton, they have a few draft picks. Marner is a free agent after this year, as is Tavares. So like they kind of have to go for it this year. That's why I want to ask you, like, what do you think the pros and cons are of trading Laughton now versus, in the offseason, whether it be at the draft or after the draft?
Hello. Is that any better?
It's about the same. It's about the same.
I don't get that. That's so weird to me.
Oh, that was better there. You turned
is that better now?
Yeah, that's good there. That's good.
Okay, that's cranked up.
Crank that.
Which is very strange. All right, but either way, yeah. So the Laughton thing, I think he's just a player that is more.
It might be too loud now.
What?
It might be too loud. Exactly. It might be too loud now.
Hello.
This seems the best so far. Gain too high, Thomas.
Yeah, the gain is too high because I have to crank it up now because I don't know why it's not going. Okay, I'm gonna leave.
Jacob is leaving and coming back, I guess here. So
and I will jump back in.
All right, go there. Yeah, I'll start on some pros and cons of trading Laughton. What I've been thinking about is he only has 1 more year on his deal, Scott Laughton. So the Flyers have leverage right now because they can keep him. They're kind of making a playoff run a little bit, especially if they win tonight in Pittsburgh, again in Winnipeg as well. If they win at least one of those games, they're still mathematically in it just because the East is so shitty. But if they wait till the offseason, teams know that, like, hey, unless the Flyers make a big move, which they might go for Wyatt Johnston, they might go for Marco Rossi, they might go for someone else. Like, unless the Flyers make a big move, they're going to be in the middle, mediocre again. And like, sure, Laughton can be a piece of that, most likely as a winger, because the Flyers will have Luchenko, Cates, Couturier, Paling down the middle. Like so Laughton could be a winger. But then if the Flyers are sellers again next year or bad, like Laughton will be a rental at the deadline where you're not getting a first round pick for him. Who knows if you're even getting a second? And then at that point, Briere doesn't want to come off his price. Maybe you just keep him and you get nothing for him, and he just becomes a lifelong Flyer, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But like, with this rebuild, you want to get as many assets as possible. I think the room can handle it. That's one of the big questions with it, is that can the room handle it? Because he is the A. I wonder who will get the A if he gets traded. Probably Sanheim or someone like that. But this deadline just seems like the perfect time to trade Scott Laughton. Bunch of leverage. The market's not good for centers right now. Teams. There's enough teams out there that are reportedly interested. Toronto, Winnipeg, Ottawa, New Jersey, a few other teams we talked about with Thomas earlier this week. So, every trade deadline, he's always one of the top guys in the market, and that just seems to be what it is right now. We do have Jacob back now. Let's see. How
Is this better?
Oh, perfect. There you go.
There we go. I don't know why that didn't work. It's literally the exact same settings. I leave this out here and just plug it in, and I don't know why it doesn't work that way.
Too fancy there. Yeah, but I was saying,
too many moving parts.
Yeah, I was saying I think the Flyers could lose their leverage with trading Laughton if they wait till the offseason, because teams will see, like, okay, if the Flyers aren't going for it, then they can kind of lowball Briere again, and then next deadline, you're not getting a first, you're not getting a second, and Briere is just going to stick to his guns and keep him for a rental. So that's why I feel like now is the right time to trade him if they're going to trade him.
Yeah, the thing with Laughton is you really have to walk the tightrope there, because you don't want to lose your leverage this deadline by saying we have to get him out of here. We want to get him traded by this deadline. We want to have him somewhere else for a team's playoff run, right? But you also don't want to leave it to the summer. And like, as you said, I'm imagining he doesn't have as much value around the league as sort of this third line gadget, shorthanded, jack of all trades sort of player in the bottom six at the start of the season, as opposed to, for a team that has a playoff push coming up, right? I don't think the Leafs are going to necessarily want to make that trade in the offseason or at the draft as much as they will at this deadline. But you kind of can't just throw that out there immediately because then the Leafs will say, okay, here's a third. And if you don't want to trade him, we'll go somewhere else and get a Jared McCann or a Nick Bukestad or some other guy who we can serve a similar sort
Danny
of role.
Briere, someone like that. Yeah, just
a bunch of names. A bunch of names have flown around. I think Laughton's fits the Leafs' needs better than a lot of those guys, and I think they legitimately want him, especially because I think he'd be willing to go there and he'd be happy to go there. But yeah, you can't. I don't think it's smart to leave it to the offseason and roll the dice again on an asset that might not have that same amount of value. And he could have another season like last season if you wait for next deadline, right? He could have a rough start, and then suddenly he doesn't have any value at all to anyone but the Flyers.
Yeah, exactly. He could take a step back, and also, like, you look at his production on the ice. I just went over how good he was doing, but you look at the Flyers lines. Like, if you replace Scott Laughton with any number of the AHLers that have come up to play this season, Lixell, Abels, Tony Dick, like any of those guys they're not going to come up and play center. Maybe Abels will, but like they can come up and play bottom 6 minutes and be fine. And the Flyers, have similar results on the ice and get the future asset for him. So that's why I think Laughton is more likely, because the Flyers, I think Tort said it, like, we don't have someone that can come in and replace Risto. So Risto is going to be tougher to move, but like whether they have to take David Kampf back and have him be the 4C, or maybe get him and flip him. But it just seems like you can take Laughton off the ice and it'll be fine.
Yeah, no, he's kind of like, if you think of it in baseball terms, he's like a replacement level player. He's maybe like a 1-WAR guy or 2-WAR guy. He's just above the average NHL player. I think he does provide more, especially, as a man in general, as a person in general, right? But at that same coin, if you have a chance to get an asset for him, it's not like you're replacing Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim. And Risto has been good to the point where, it is going to be a little difficult to replace what he brings.
Yeah, and also with Laughton, like, if you go to the offseason, teams can go on free agency and get these type of players for less than $3 million. Like, especially these contenders, we see players taking like a million or like the vet minimum just to get a chance at the cup. So especially the Leafs, they're not going to necessarily have the money to do that with Marner and Tavares. So, and also it's kind of a double-edged sword for the Flyers, because Scott Laughton you probably want him around in the locker room next year, especially if Luchenko's up, if Sparky or Bump or someone else makes the jump. But you also don't want him there taking up a roster spot when there could be someone younger perform just as well, if not better, and also get an asset for him. So yeah, it just comes back to, I think now being the best time. I don't know if it's likely. I don't know what percentage I was going to put it at.
Yeah, either Lawton or Risto, we're going to talk about here in a minute. I don't really know. It seems plausible. I think both of them seem plausible, right? Like they're players who have value, like for playoff teams, right? To go on to teams to go on playoff runs, like that big right-handed defenseman, that bottom six sort of shorthanded penalty kill guy who brings some character. I think those are archetypes that are valued around this time of year. But again, I don't think the Flyers necessarily need to make a move. I don't think they're going to have. I think they need to make a move towards the draft. That's like that. If you wanted to round everything up at the draft and have a massive package and include a couple of picks and then try and go after maybe a more established young name, I think that almost makes sense too. I wouldn't be against that because I'm not exactly sure if you're getting anything crazy for Scott Laughton at the moment.
I mean, yeah, and that also reminds me, like, people are saying, "Oh, teams aren't going to overpay for Scott Laughton." Like, a player is worth what teams are willing to offer. Like, if a team is willing to offer a first-round pick for him, if Briere says that's the price, that's the price. It's not. You're not waiting for a team to overpay. You're waiting for a team to come up to the price.
Listen, the Tanner Jeannot trade,
exactly.
Like that's the archetype for this. You're trying to get a team who's desperate and thinks they need a guy in the bottom six for a playoff run. I don't know. Like I also heard. I also want to bring up. I heard Ottawa too as another name for Laughton.
DeMarco.
And again, it's like what? Why would they want him?
They have too many centers already.
Yeah, they have too many guys in the bottom six. Like culturally, yeah, he would fit well with them, right? I think he would fit sort of that team they're building over there. He can get to reunite with G and everything, but I don't really get that either. And what are the like? You're not going to trade Shane Pinto for Scott Laughton. That's just a complete. That's kind of like a wash, is it not? Yeah. And then it goes against kind of what the team you're building looks like. So it's weird, it's strange, and I'm not exactly sure where things are going to land. But with Laughton especially, it seems like there's a lot of different suitors who might be looking to. You're going to have to try and just pit them against one another because I don't really know where his value lies right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's why the Leafs are coming out, because you want to pressure teams to get a bidding war going, and that's a perfect segue here to Ristolainen, because I'm trying to search right now while you're talking. Like, has there been any teams at all linked to Ristolainen? Like we've talked about, okay, maybe Vancouver, maybe Dallas, maybe Winnipeg, but there's been no reports from reputable or non-reputable insiders. Like no one's even made up anything.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard a single thing about Ristolainen that's concrete, like a team having interest in him. I think there's definitely around the league intrigue in his sort of like how he's reinvented himself this past year, especially. But it's weird. It's like he's got a decently sized contract that is obviously not the albatross that it once was. Right now, it's pretty reasonable. I think teams could say to try and bring him in, right? I think teams could have a rationale there, and the Flyers can take a little bit of money, maybe. Yeah, but anything new for Ristolainen? Thomas in the chat saying Edmonton was interested months ago. Again, I heard some rumblings around Dallas too a while ago, like those were circulating. But it's been a while since we've heard any new news on the Risto front. I guess it makes sense that he was injured at the Four Nations. He hasn't been playing, but it has been strange. Hasn't been much talk around Risto.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton got Klingberg since then for nothing. We saw Dallas go out and get Granlund and Ceci. Who knows if Ceci is ultimately their addition, because they do still need some help there on the blue line. But yeah, there's just no interest at all really in Risto. And I do wonder if it's due to the Flyers telling teams like, we're not retaining on him. We're not going to retain on him. We're rebuilding. We don't want to retain on him. Like, and that's going to impact, first of all, teams' abilities to trade for him because of the salary cap issue if the Flyers don't take a contract back. But also, like, yeah, I mean, there's going to be other, not as, I don't know if I can say not as good defensemen, because, you know, Risto has kind of changed his game a bit, but like, who else is out there? Like, Provorov's probably not going to be traded. Savard, guys like that, like, that just, like, Ristolainen can play second pair minutes if he has to. He can step up and be a first line guy, even if he has to, with like a Heiskanen. Like, I don't know. I just thought there would be more interest in him, especially because, like you said, you know, big right-handed defenseman plays. We've been dying to see playoff Risto now. He's 30 years old. So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. As a, if you could get 30 to 50% retained on Risto, you know, obviously the Flyers aren't going to be jumping at the chance to do that. But if you got him at a bit of a discount, right, for his 2 more seasons, it's a solid player. Like, he's not going to turn into a pumpkin by the time he's 32, right? He's 30 right now. He'll give you, I think he's got 3 more good seasons left in him if you continue to put him in the environment that the Flyers have. And if you play him sheltered minutes on the third pair because you got a bit of a discount on him, I think he can be one of the better third pair defensemen in the NHL, which is crazy to say now. But third pair, the bar isn't super high. If you put him against like these sort of checking lines and more energy lines in the bottom sixes of teams that are playoff bound, I think he can do a really good job. The Athletic had, I don't know if you saw this, the Athletic had a story actually yesterday come out talking about Ristolainen, and Kevin Kurz had one. And
I was just reading that to see if any teams were mentioned.
He just basically said the same.
Yeah.
You know, not really much interest, a team source said, at least. Yeah. That's what he is hearing as the guy closest to the team for the Athletic. So, I mean, definitely has some insight to that. And I mean, you can just kind of, the proof is in the pudding, to use a 1970s phrase. There hasn't been any talk about it, and there would be if there were offers coming in, because it's going to have to be, you know, if not a big return for the Flyers, I think it's going to have to be a bit bigger of a trade. Like, there'll be more than one piece in it, just given the fact that his salary is going to come into play.
Yeah, and maybe the Flyers wouldn't hate retaining on Risto. They do have one slot tied up with Hayes through the end of next season. And like, besides Risto, there's no one they would be looking to move that they would have to retain on, I don't think. It ties up a slot. You're not going to be able to get a 4th round pick for retaining something in a third move as a third team, if you do end up having a third one there. But also looking at like the trade board here, looking at Kuiper's trade board from yesterday, the top 2 defensemen are in there. Risto looks like a bargain compared to Seth Jones and Erik Karlsson. Like,
yeah, I've seen the Seth Jones stuff, and it's like, if you're going to get Seth Jones, I mean, at this point, like, I don't know if that's a better use of your. You can get Seth Jones at 50% retained. It's still 4.5, right?
Yeah. I think it's at least 9. Yeah,
it's at least, he's at least 9. I don't know if it's 9.25 or 9, but it's at least 9. You're going to be paying a lot for a guy who, you know, he's been on a really bad team, but I don't know if I'd even really want him in my top two pairings if I was a cup contender. So
no, definitely not.
At that point, then what are you really acquiring, right? So that's what you have to look at, the frame of mind for these teams that are looking to make cup runs. You know, the Jets aren't just going to get Seth Jones to get Seth Jones. They want a guy who's going to play top 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to get top 4 minutes out of them in games that matter, Risto does, again, like you said, look like a bargain in comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point by Thomas here in the chat. Flyers operate so quiet, though. Feels like it's going to come out of nowhere, like Frost Farabee. Like, all the Flyers trades in recent memory have kind of come out of nowhere. That one, the Drysdale trade. I guess the Avalanche were reportedly interested in Walker, but like nothing too much. Eric Johnson came out of nowhere. Like the Provorov deals. Like, yeah, the Flyers do operate pretty quickly. So that quietly. So that's something to keep in mind with Risto. But I'm also just like reading into Torch's quote saying like, if we trade Ristolainen Friday, we're looking for a big right-handed defenseman on Saturday, and the Flyers don't really have anyone that can fill that gap. I don't know why they don't trust Emil Andre to come up, and obviously not the same archetype as a player.
Yeah, it's not the same guy. I think the problem that Andre has is more lies with Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah.
I think Jamie Drysdale being there, it kind of hurts Andre's ceiling as a player on the team. And again, love it or hate what Torts is saying, he is kind of right. Like they do need that big right-handed defenseman is what people are looking for, and that's been the trend that's washed over the NHL for the past probably decade, is that big right-handed defenseman. Mm-hmm. He is not, Risto's not like 35. He's got some years left in the tank. He's started to play some of his best hockey now with a new team. It makes sense to trade him. It really does. But at the same time, I understand where Torts is coming from, especially knowing how Torts thinks the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I guess they would, if they did trade him, they would probably either play Eric Johnson, call up Helge Grans, call up. They still have Jennings. Jennings left-handed though, or is he right-handed?
Yeah, I think Jennings is right-handed. Actually, I think Jennings is right-handed. Yeah, Hunter McDonald. Hunter McDonald is still down there. Hunter McDonald maybe at the end of the year, the very end of the year. He hasn't been good, but they might just put him in there because they like him.
Yeah. So
at a certain point.
And Risto does seem more like an off-season trade because teams in the off-season aren't looking for like, oh, we really need to get this third line grinder center and going to be paying for Laughton. But we've seen Chuck Fletcher be like, all right, we need a right-handed defenseman. Let's go get Risto. Like we've seen teams, that's a position because of the handedness, because of the size, because of these hockey men being obsessed with big boys there. Like that's something where you can just wait. And the Flyers do have that extra year where even if he goes into camp with the team, like who's taking his spot? Is Bonk going to come in and take that spot? Is Andre maybe take Zamula's spot? Like there's no one that's clearly ready to take his spot.
Yeah. And the thing with Risto is I think I want to present something to you. Maybe like the best way of using that asset and getting the most out of the asset that is Risto is packaging him with maybe other roster players or other assets in order to get a bigger fish, right? Like not just trading Risto with a little bit retained, probably not retained, but trading Risto and getting him to a team that wants him for picking a prospect, a third, and a guy who you can take another shot on. Maybe you get Risto, package him with a future first, package him with another Foster Farabee type player that maybe you're looking to move on, not necessarily because they're bad, but to get more of a change of scenery for the player. I think that might be the best way to use Risto's value as an asset as it currently sits. And that's probably something that's going to happen around the draft or around the offseason. That's why, to me personally, I'm more – obviously the deadline's going to be fun, but the Flyers haven't been – and it's a new regime, but they haven't been necessarily the most active team around the deadlines for the past little bit as it goes for big moves, for splash moves for other teams. But I'm looking towards the draft for a guy like Risto, and if Briere and Jones can really get creative and try to package something together where you get a real coveted asset, maybe from a team that has too many options at center or too many options even on the wing.
Yeah, I really like that idea. Like I could even see Risto and Laughton being packaged together to go somewhere to gets maybe not someone like as good as a Pettersson, but maybe like a Marco Rossi who's an RFA if Minnesota wants to move off him and they want to get something bigger. Like you want to get the best player or asset in a deal. And you're not necessarily going to do that if you trade Risto for like a pick. Because I'm not sure if you're getting a first unless you retain. You're getting a second round pick maybe. And
yeah, I think you might have to retain to get a first. It feels like that's kind of the sentiment. Yeah, and that might be why the Flyers don't have a ton of interest in it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they don't want to retain. They're looking at it. Yeah, he's going
Yeah.
out there. He's playing. Who's he playing with now? Playing with Zamula, and they're looking fine together. Like, sure,
He's played on the power play here and there.
Nice.
I mean, obviously, it's not a golden
it's not what you want.
opportunity for the Flyers.
Yeah,
as a Flyer, but he's on there, and I have liked him this year. I like him. I like how he brings the size to the back end. I like how he has sort of grown, with this coaching staff, and he's kind of the example to defensemen coming up. Like, hey, this guy was ass forever. Like, legitimately, the most value to money was just horrible for years. But he was able to figure it out here, and he's really turned it all around for him. And it's good to have that example around at the same time, especially because as he gets older, he's going to be one of those guys who, when an Oliver Bomp comes up, or another defensive prospect, Spencer Gill, far in the future, or somebody like that, maybe you stick him with Risto, and he does something. He's big, he'll take punishment for you. He's not necessarily a fighter, but he is a guy that can serve a lot of different functions. And I don't think you need to rush to trade him anymore, like you did maybe 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bradshaw said recently that they are worried about being too small on the blue line. I know there was quite a few under 6 foot. I think he said Cam York is small, but he considers him big just due to how he plays with, which I love.
He's a bit stout. Yeah. Zach said that. Zach O just said that in the chat too. Yeah.
That's there. So I mean, you want to get bigger. You see teams like Vegas, like Florida, like Tampa, like these teams that are going deep in the playoffs have 3 big pairings. Like, you either have that, or you have a Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes, who's just a fucking magician with the puck. And
it's the same with Colorado. You got Girard, Makar, Devontae's. Listen, like, those 3 guys are wizards with the puck. They're great with the puck. But there are a lot of teams that, as you said, Zach Bogosian keeps finding his way on the playoff teams. Joel Edmondson, Luke Shen, these guys just keep finding their way around the league because having that big guy on the back end on the bottom pair with playoff experience, which we all know Risto has the exact opposite of playoff experience, but still, that there's an inherent value for those guys around the league, and I think there always will be. And maybe as Risto, as his contract even dwindles down further, he becomes more valuable if he can keep this play up, right? Because we've seen these guys, like I just said, Bogosian, Luke Shen, can't skate. Zero skating ability in either of their games. And it's only gotten worse, and they keep playing for perfectly solid teams. They win cups into their 30s, their late 30s. So Risto, he could have another 8 years left in the league. Especially if he starts tagging along on the teams on 1 year, $2 million deals in the future. He could have that sort of career path now that he's sort of figured out his defensive game and gotten a bit more physical.
Do we think that he's almost to the point where he's played himself out of being a trade piece for the Flyers, where Bradshaw's gotten him to a point where they know what they have with him. They don't have anyone to replace him. Maybe they trade him at the draft and they have eyes on a free agent to replace him. I'm not sure what defensemen are free agents, but they don't, unless they're really confident that McDonald can come up and play that kind of role. They don't have that, and they can have Risto be a solid guy on the right side, come up, play Andrei with him, have him maybe mentor Bonk a bit to get more physical in his game. I don't think he'll play out his contract here, but maybe the whole next season, see if the Flyers are in it at the deadline, and we're talking the same thing again. Yeah,
it's funny because I think at the turn of the year, at the start of this year, I had that thought in my head as the trade rumors sort of started to kick up. Do you really even want to deal him right now? As he gets down to his last year of his contract, and if you can move him as a rental, what's going to be the value you get with 2 more years of Risto versus Risto on an expiring? The difference between those two, what you get in return for him. And in that meantime, you get another year and a half of, as you said, a pretty good defenseman at this point. So yeah, it's weird. It's kind of hard to envision it, because if no teams are looking at him right now, then that obviously doesn't mean that means that he's not going to get a crazy return. And if you're not getting that real haul that you could possibly get in the future, if you package him with some other assets or some of the picks that you have coming up in the future, I almost like that more. And it's going to be frustrating because we're almost talking ourselves out of trading the 2 trade pieces on the team that's rebuilding. But you could work with it.
It has to make sense. It has to make sense. You're not going to make trades just to make trades.
If you were creative, you could really get something going in the offseason or at the draft or even next year. In Risto's case, that's really enticing. That's really interesting.
I'd almost venture to say it wouldn't be shocking if his value goes up almost. With the cap going up, the length of his contract comes down. Like, I don't think his value is going to go down at all.
And he was injured in the offseason.
And he was injured.
And this season as well.
He'll keep getting better, especially if he's on the power play, rack up the points, get some physical highlights on there. Play with
racking up the points now. What type of
scored in back-to-back
universe do we live in? No, he actually gets points now. He remembered how to do it. It's great.
Yeah. And he's playing with Zamula. Like, maybe you keep him for next year. He plays Andrei, and he shows he can play big minutes, and you can get even more for him. Like, it doesn't hurt. He's not hurting the Flyers to have on their roster at all.
No, not at all. And that's, you think about an Andrei Risto pairing, right? And like, just on its face, there's some potential there. Like, you put a guy who can skate and move the puck next to Risto, I think you've got a pair that can play third pair minutes, definitely, but second, depending how good, the other guy you put with him is, right? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And there's, I don't think we can say that Risto's hit his skill ceiling, which is hilarious to say about a 30-year-old, but he's gotten so much better, sort of incrementally these last 2 years. I think maybe you give him another offseason of preparing and getting ready and getting healthy and coming in next year for another year where he sort of understands his role even further within the defense and what he's being asked to do. Maybe he does take another little step up. I'm not saying he's going to immediately turn to Chris Pronger, but, he could maintain that value into the future. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all.
Yeah, I'm just shaking my head and laughing because I can't believe we've talked myself into keeping Risto and wanting to keep Risto. Because I'm thinking about okay, we saw Sanheim and Andrei together for a bit. We saw Sanheim and Drysdale together for a bit. What about a York Risto shutdown pairing? Like, that could be something that's great next year.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of he fits in a lot of different places. There are a lot of guys you can play him next to. I think the only guy
I hate this so much. Right?
Yeah, he's better though now. Like, you look at some of these guys, Winnipeg's playing Logan Stanley. Stinks. The guy's bad. He's just not good, but he's tall, right? I mean, Risto's better than him. He just is. And Logan Stanley's going to make a deep playoff run, barring the fact that the Jets are going to choke again, maybe, but whatever. He is valuable enough. And I think that's also why he hasn't necessarily gotten a ton of interest, because teams know that if you want to get him out of Philly, you're going to have to actually give the Flyers something worth trading for, right? It's not going to be a salary dump anymore. And I think even in some other front offices' minds, they're like, okay, we're going to give up assets for this guy. You know who this guy is? Like Carolina, the analytics forward guys are like, we can't do this, right? We can't trade for Rasmus Ristolainen after all this time, but that's where we sit right now. That's how it is.
Yeah, I'm looking up free agent right-handed defenseman this summer and who the Flyers could maybe replace him with if they trade him. You got Burns, Ekblad, Jeff Petrie as the top 3 cap hits, Neil Pionk in Winnipeg, and then Savard, CC, Yokiharju.
Interesting, I guess.
Yeah, but he's 30. Why not just keep what you have?
That's the thing. That is legitimately the thing. And I think Winnipeg, that's the reason why they're interested in him, is because I think they're going to lose Pionk, and you can just slot Risto in where Pionk is and continue on and like nothing ever happened. So again, I don't want Jeff Petrie over Rasmus Ristolainen.
No.
Brett Burns, I love Brent Burns for a long time, but he is 39, 40.
He needs to go home to his farm upstate with all his snakes and whatever he has.
Like Brent Burns, I'm surprised he played this long, honestly. I thought Brent Burns would have retired. Good for him, because I thought he would have been on like a Dustin Bufflin path where he goes professional fishing at like 32 or something.
Yeah. He's getting paid a shit ton though, isn't he? Still on
that?
Oh,
he gets paid a shitload. Yeah,
5.2 he has.
Yeah, he does really well. And you look at those names and you're like, I don't really think you can replace Risto for sure, but you're going to be paying to do it.
Yeah, even if looking at like
Pionk's not going to take less than 5.1.
No, looking at like
to get it.
Left-hand defensemen that have a cap hit of less than 5. You got Chychrun, Ryan Lindgren, Alec Martinez. He's going to retire. Savard. Yeah. I mean, like, you don't Ian Cole. Like, you don't want Olimata. No, it's just stick with the devil or the flyer
Yeah. I mean, maybe Lindgren, but again, like, why?
Some team will overpay him. Like, at that point, the Flyers.
That's the thing. You look at all these guys. David Savard will get overpaid by somebody.
For no reason. Yeah. Anything else on Risto here? I feel like we've talked out a lot.
I think we had a good. We've reached a good conclusion on Risto. I think it looks pretty unlikely that he goes right now at this moment, especially after the injury. I think that's probably killed his market a bit too.
Yeah, teams are probably a bit wary of that because last year he was playing injured and then had surgery after the season. So that could be a problem there. Andrei Kuzmenko is also a guy who's been with the Flyers now about a month, only played a handful of games, but his vibe is fantastic. He seems to be fitting in pretty well, but I think Kuiper had him on his trade board right away as a potential flip. Where are you at on him? We also got a question in the Discord earlier today from Menthol Moose. I also have a question for your live show. Do you guys think the Flyers will attempt to move Kuzmenko, and do you have any idea what they might get in return?
Yeah, the Kuzmenko thing's weird. When he was acquired, I remember talking to you and Thomas, and I was kind of like, I was a bit more open to the idea of keeping him around. And I think he started off really well. He looks like he fits well in the team. He offers a bit of, a spark on the power play, I think. He's a guy who at least looks like he wants to be out there on the power play, which is something. We need something. I think if he is able to put together a quick stretch of maybe 10 games here where he goes 7 points in 10, I don't even know if they have 10 games left for a deadline. I don't think they do.
They have 4 left, including tonight.
They've done 3. Anyways, leading up to the deadline, I don't think they have 10 games left. Leading up to the deadline, if he's able to show out just a little bit more, have a couple more goals and assist, like maybe you can get something for him. But if he's not going to be able to perform, what are teams really going to give up for a guy who was basically a cap dump like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I just remembered you and Thomas talked about this for way too long, probably two weeks ago. So I'm leaning more now just towards keeping him because what are you going to get? Like a 3rd or 4th round pick? I was looking at last year's trade deadline. Jack Roslovic got traded for a conditional 4th.
That's crazy.
Tarasenko got like a 3rd. Flyers give a 4th for Johnson. So it'll be like a 3rd or a 4th.
Yeah.
If they do move him, I would like it to be for like a roster player, like a Nicholas Robertson type who has worn out his welcome where he's at, younger, but at that point, just keep him. Keep him, see how he fits, and maybe he wants to take a 1-year deal to come back.
I think if you're trading Kuzmenko for a roster player, you're getting back guys that the Flyers maybe already have on the roster. Like you're getting back someone else's version of Morgan Frost.
Yeah.
Probably worse, honestly.
Yeah.
He's got 2 points in 3 games. He's got the goal on the power plays. Mine's 3, which is tough, but I don't know. That's more so the team, I think.
Yeah.
It's It's going to be tough to move him for anything that's substantial. I really just don't know what his value is around the league. I thought it was higher before he got traded to the Flyers, to be honest with you. I thought he still had a bit more value to front offices around the league as a guy who did score 39 goals at one point. I mean, that is not that long ago. I feel like we're talking about that season like it was in 2015 when, 2022, 23 is not that long ago. But yeah, obviously I've been proved wrong. He doesn't have that much value. He was basically the cap dump. He was to make the money work, right, for Farabee and in particular. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him traded, right? I wouldn't mind seeing him go, but I just don't know where the Flyers are going to get anything substantial for him at this moment.
It's not going to be a big deal either way. Like, sure, he'll be a Flyers legend for his 6 games or whatever, the people you remember. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'd like to see him capped, I guess, if I had to make a decision. But it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I don't even think I'm at this point where I want to see him kept. I just like either way for me. I think I'll probably roll my eyes if he's traded for like a 5th, but does it really matter? No.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it being like the opposite end of the Wade Allison for Dennis Gurianov trade, where the Flyers get like a Wade Allison type. That's bid. But like you said,
yeah,
that's what the Flyers have. That's what the Flyers have.
They had a lot of those
on their roster and in the Phantoms.
I'm starting to think about a lot of like for the mental exercise I'm doing with myself when I think about these trades and like what you can get in return is this guy better or more impactful than like Ule Lixell? Like Nicholas Robertson, you get Nicholas Robertson.
Yeah.
How much more impactful with those minutes is he going to be than Lixell would be if you put him in or Tony Dick? Same with Tony Dick.
Yeah, or bring up Tuamala or someone like that. Like, yeah, it's
Abels,
negligible.
A lot of these guys who are on the fringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough to find somewhere that you're going to get value for Kuzmenko at this point, I think.
Yeah, so that's the 3 main guys. I did have another question here in the Discord that kind of lines up with the question in the chat. So I'm going to read the Discord question here. How would you feel if the Flyers moved one of their 3 big RFAs, York, Forster, and Cates, at this deadline? They already moved one pending RFA. Also, if they did, would you want picks/prospects or a more known quantity back? And we had a chat earlier from Lorenza. We need to trade for Byfield. What will it take to pull that off? Like, I feel like the Flyers, sure, maybe they could trade a York for like a Patterson and a Patterson deal or a Byfield deal, but the way Cates is playing, they're not moving him. Forster has been pretty much untouchable, and they love York's game. I feel like York's value around the league is lower than to the Flyers.
Yeah, I think York has really proven himself as a Flyer, especially to the coaching staff. Torts had some friction with him in the past, right? But I think at this point, like, he is very valuable to the team. Noah Cates can't leave. Noah Cates cannot leave. He has been fantastic this year. And especially with how little center play the Flyers actually have, it just doesn't make sense. And Tyson Forster, yeah, like you said, I can't see that ever happening right now. York would be the guy that I would see most likely to move. But again, you're talking like 10%.
Yeah, it's extremely low. Like, I could see them maybe getting their hand forced with Forster if he's the main piece in a deal for like a Patterson or like a 1C. Okay, I can deal with that. But besides that, yeah, you got to keep those 3.
And about the Byfield thing, Byfield's fantastic. I've loved his game for so long. He's so fun to watch, like this huge guy with like silky hands, and he's got like this beautiful skating stride. It hasn't necessarily been as great for him at the NHL level as I thought it would be when he first came up with LA. I thought he would do really well in LA, right? He did come up at 18, so he's a really young guy, but this year he's got 34 and 56 with 11 goals. It's not necessarily it hasn't been great for him, and I think you're going to have to pay a hefty premium to get him out of LA. I would love to see it. I love Quentin Byfield. I really think he would fit in well here.
Where did he play
but-
juniors? He play in the O?
Yeah, he played in the O. He played for Sudbury.
Okay.
Yeah, Sudbury. Yeah, he played for Sudbury. I actually saw him in London at the U18 Russia-Canada series when I went to school there. He looked fake compared to other guys on the ice. He was like 6'5", just massive, just huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like he's only his career high in goals is 20, flat out 20. His career high in points is 55. This is he really has only played one full year in the NHL, but yeah, he's gonna cost a lot. I would love to get him, but unless you can kind of I wouldn't want to trade Cates for him right now, personally. It would be close.
I feel like I would include a lot of people in a trade for Byfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you want Cates in there, do you think?
I'd be fine upgrading from Cates to Byfield. It depends what the other parts are. But also, the Kings aren't doing that. They're just not. Especially now that they put him on the second line with Fiala. He had a 4-assist game the other night, had an assist last night against Vancouver.
Yeah, he's going to crank it up.
Yeah, I don't understand.
You're waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I don't understand what Rob Blake is doing with him and also with Brandt Clark. Like two, maybe not amazing young players, but good young players that are just being in the doghouse for no reason.
I got more Canadian prospect content on Brandt Clark. Seen Brandt Clark live back in the day too, and just pounding the pavement, scouting.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it's been weird. He's got some weird development over there. I think if he's just one of these years, he's just going to blow up. Like I feel like it's going to be one of those Lafreniere type things where he has he just one year he just kind of clicks and finds some line mates that he likes and can, if not become a point per game guy, just become a guy who's impactful in the NHL. Yeah. But it hasn't happened yet, and I think you'd have to pay for the potential, and you'd be paying out the nose. It might be Forster and York type deal. It's obviously at that point it wouldn't be 2 for 1. You would get something back, but you would have to include a lot in that deal to go get Byfield.
Yeah, and he has $6.25 million until 2029. He's locked up on a pretty good deal that looks even better with the cap going up.
Yeah, if he can turn it on anywhere within those years leading into that deal, he's going to be an absolute bargain.
Yeah. All right, let's close it out with this. It's Thursday. We got a little bit less than 8 days until the trade deadline. Friday, March 7th. It is 3:30. The Flyers did nothing. How do you feel?
Zero moves at all.
No more trades. That's it.
No more trades.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little annoyed. I think you just need to do something. I think there's just too much. Moving out Frost and Farabee isn't necessarily moving out the guys who are the most tradable, right? Those two, Farabee and Frost could have stayed to the end of the season. There would have been no issues with that. I don't think anyone would bat an eye. But you're looking at guys like Laughton. You're looking at guys like even if you wanted to trade Garnet Hathaway, if some team came over the top for a Garnet Hathaway, which I could see happening, or moving out even some picks, right? Trying to take one of these picks and find a guy who's maybe a pending RFA or maybe somebody who needs a change of scenery and trying to make a move there. I think I want to see something happen. I think the Laughton trade, it's important to happen to really. This is tough for me. It
is tough
because you could not do anything, and then in the future, if you just trade Laughton at the draft or trade Risto at the draft, then who cares?
Yeah, but would that be putting too much pressure on the offseason? I mean, fans are going to go nuts if they don't make any more moves. Online fans, that subsection of the fan base will be going crazy. But
Yeah, but they've been going nuts for how many years now? Like they're still going nuts now. It doesn't matter at that point. This is the thing. I'm just not sure if there's going to be a trade that arises that's worth enough to deal Laughton or Risto, and I don't know who else is going to go. Like there could be other guys who go that we haven't talked about yet. You know, there's 100% chance that happens, but shit, I don't know who is it going to be. I can't see it right now, and especially at the deadline with it to
Eric was just in the chat saying could keep Risto trade Sealer. I mean, maybe.
Again, what do you get for Nick Sealer? This is the thing. You know, I think all these guys seem to. I think the problem with what we've been talking about leading up to this trade deadline is all of these guys have more value to the Flyers than to other teams. Nick Sealer 100% does. They really like Nick Sealer. That's why he's been extended. Scott Laughton, I think, has more value to the Flyers as it stands right now than pretty much anybody else, maybe bar the Leafs or another Canadian team as they get closer and get pushed into the deadline, right? And they're under pressure to make a move to improve, right? And Risto, I think still, I think that reigns true with him as well too, because he has been reformed by Bradshaw and Torts, and he's been injured. So I don't know if he's necessarily going to have the value that he did maybe leading into December, where he started off hot and had a good start to the year. It's going to be weird because I don't know if the right move's going to – I think you can definitely make a move. It's 100% going to be easy to make a move. I just think it's going to be difficult to make a move that's worth making one.
Yeah, I would love to see the Flyers use a second-round pick, go get some center that you need to change the scenery. Yeah. But then who are you scratching? Who are you sending down? The Flyers would then have to send a player out as well. Like that's like you look at the four lines right now. No one's going to the AHL. I don't think Pelletier would have to clear waivers. They're not sending him down. Yeah. They're posting pictures of him like every day at practice. I'm not sure if they're trying to make him some sort of new face of the franchise or what. But like the Flyers seem to have their 12 forwards right now. They have their 6-7 defensemen. Like, it's
you have to take out from the team before you really start getting guys in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it leads to maybe a bigger Risto trade or a bigger Laughton trade. But I think it's really tempting to just say Laughton, second rounder, don't overthink it, just get him out. But I don't know.
I think
don't know. If that doesn't okay, so I'll throw a question back at you. If it's either no moves or Laughton for a second round pick and no other moves, what would you rather the Flyers do?
No moves.
Nothing?
No moves. Yeah, because then that's seeing Briere come down on his price. That's not good for future negotiations.
Yeah.
I was going to say my prediction is Laughton for a first and David Kempf. Like you're going to have to take back that contract. It's going to suck. Maybe you can flip him before the deadline or in the offseason, but to get that first round pick, they'll take back a contract just like they did with Ryan Johansson.
Then at that point, if that does happen, I think at that point I need to see them trade at least 2 picks.
It can't be just that, or before the draft.
No, before the draft. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Dominoes down the line. Yeah, but no, that trade I have no issue with that happening. That makes sense to me. I think that might make sense for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. But I don't think it makes or breaks my feelings on the deadline necessarily.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah. Would you rather have Fraser Minten or the first round pick in 2026?
I like Minten. I do like Minten. I think the Flyers would end up drafting somebody a lot similar to Fraser Minten if they got their way and they got a late first rounder in this draft. So I like Minten. I would probably prefer Minten at this point in time. Especially since you have the later picks already. Like if you have a guy you're targeting in the late first.
It would be next year's draft. So when they don't
2026. Yeah. Yes. Again, the Leafs are going to be good next year. It's not going to be a huge a huge asset. Yeah, I think I'd rather have Minton still. I think I'd rather have Minton. I like Minton. I know there's probably some people out there. I think Thomas doesn't like Minton. I think Thomas is a Minton hater. But I think he brings you more stability, and I like the backbone of Minton, potential backbone of Minton, Luchenko, Cates. Like if those three are three centers up the middle, and they can kind of be interchangeable as 2, 3, 4, and even if you have to play one as the 1C, I think that's okay. Just whoever turns out best. I mean, Jet could potentially be that, right? But I think Minton's a guy who can just play the Scott Laughton role, at bare minimum play the Scott Laughton role for an extended period in the future. So I like Fraser Minton. I think you can mold him into something that's a solid NHL player for a very long time. Nothing flashy, but I think he'll be a good player. I'm still, as you said before, I'm still surprised the Leafs didn't get him into the roster. Get him into the roster.
It doesn't make sense. Be like, all right, can this guy that we might trade do what we're going to trade for? But I guess they value the experience, the whatever. They have in the room.
Yeah, and I'd assume Berube also.
Oh yeah, Berube loves Laughton, so they're trading Laughton to the Leafs. Yeah, that's just.
It seems like it makes sense. He seems also like a Brad Treliving guy too. You know, back in Calgary, that's the type of guy who was always in the second, third line roles in Calgary. So it makes sense. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, because then you bring Minton in, he just takes Laughton's place on the roster. You have 4 decent centers, especially.
And maybe you push him up a little bit and see what he can do for the rest of the year, right? I would like. I mean,
put him in Laughton's spot right now. Put him with Kuzmenko and Konechny. See what he can do, or shuffle it around a little bit.
Not like anybody else in the AHL is banging down the door. So
no. But yeah, if they get the first round pick next year, maybe that opens up the chance for an offer sheet more so. But I don't think the Flyers are going to offer sheet. I think if anything, they'll work out a trade for Marco Rossi, Wyatt Johnston, maybe one of the Ducks non-Zegras centers. If they could somehow get McTavish or Carlson, that would be crazy. Maybe a Shane Pinto, like someone like that.
They're not going to trade Carlson.
They're not trading Carlson.
No.
They should not. No way.
No. And who's Wyatt Johnson? If they get Wyatt Johnson, I would
go insane.
Expletive.
Yeah.
Sexual content warning.
It would be quite the live stream if there was a
I'd be sure it was. So we'll have to see. I think it's a bigger move. I'm now pivoting to I want to see that big move. I think they have enough pieces to make a splash. For somebody young. I want to get somebody young, but I think you're starting the Mishkov coming over kind of accelerated the timeline a bit. Yeah. And I don't think it's next year that you have to compete, but I think the year after that, there's definitely, an expectation. I personally have an expectation that you're going to have a good hockey team. Samuel Ersson, as long as he doesn't get hurt, knock on wood, or fall off a cliff. I think if you do like a Washington thing where you have a Lindgren and you have Logan Thompson and you have Ersson being the Logan Thompson to another decent older goaltender in the future, or say, one of your younger options comes up and you can just have him as a Vragan or Ivan Fedotov figures it out somehow they teach him how to play goalie in the offseason or something. But
is Bjarnason turning pro next year, or does he have one more?
I think he is. I'd have to look. But
they're not going to rush him, obviously. But like,
no. Yeah, and he doesn't really have there's not a ton of space for him, anyways, right? As a goalie, but I think regardless, I think there's a you can make there's a path to make a move that's a real splash for a center, for a guy who can get another lease on life in Philly and try to really become a first or second line top 6 option.
Yeah, I think that has to happen this summer. It has to. They have to get someone that can play top 6 minutes.
I want it before the draft, personally.
I could see it happening at the draft. Whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter.
At the draft, sure.
Whatever. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you have
during the third round is fine.
Yeah, and then you have Luchenko coming in playing middle 6 minutes. You got Cates playing middle 6 minutes. You got whoever they get playing top 6 minutes, and you have Paling or Coots playing. Who do you think is going to move to wing next year with Cates, Couturier, Luchenko, Paling, and unnamed top 6 center? I guess Paling?
Probably just Paling, yeah, right? Probably just Paling. I'm interested in the Sean Couturier defensive winger net front presence arc. I might have to get a story going on that one. I might have to get a story going on that one. And just to his second, we just got to teach him how to fight. And he'll if he lets me take over his PR, he will be a Flyers legend again in like a year and a half. He's just got to fight badly.
Grow out the beard,
battle, huge beard, stand in front of the net with your elbows like this. Always get like some really big gloves.
Yeah, get the Garth Snow shoulder pads in there.
Yeah. No, So I think it would be Paling though. That makes the most sense. He's probably fits better as a speedy winger, anyways. And Coots is bottom 6 center or middle 6 center is good with me.
Yeah. All right. I feel like we got a good little stream going here. Anything else you want to touch on? Any key points before we close it out?
No, I think we're pretty much all good. I think we've gotten through everything I want to talk about. Thanks to everybody in the chat for keeping it rolling in there and keeping me giving me ideas to talk about things as we're going. A lot easier when you do that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely,
appreciate seeing the engagement as we start to build up this little platform here at BSH. We've got some good stuff coming. So appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Appreciate all the chat, all the interaction. Hopefully do more of these before the deadline. I'm planning on doing one Monday, as long as everything goes well. Obviously, if there's anything that breaks, we will hop on and record there. So make sure you are subscribed to the Broad Street Hockey channel on YouTube. Like and comment on videos. That helps the algorithm, helps us grow, helps us bring you great content like this. We're just a mom and pop shop. We're not funded by anybody, but you. So $5 a month, broadstreethockey.com. Like and subscribe there. Read plenty of great content on there. So make sure you check that out. Follow Jacob on his socials. J Russell _28. Is that what it is?
Russell _28 _. I will be. You find me on Twitter when I click on the wrong app.
Yeah. Otherwise, just Blue Sky. Yeah. Ryan Gilbert.bsky.social on Blue Sky.
I got to find my Blue Sky handle. I'll get that for you guys at some point. Yeah. I'm still a little confused with the URLs. I don't really know if I love that.
All right.
Yeah. We'll get out of your hair, guys. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, guys.
See you around.
See ya.